Hi, everybody, and welcome to My Life with Kenny Rogers. My name is John DePietro, but let me stop you right in your tracks right now. The best part about this show, is that it's not my life with Kenny Rogers, but the life of our guests who have spent lots of time with Kenny, both on stage, backstage, working with him in a wide variety of different capacities. And today, we've got a very special guest coming to us. Although it really makes no difference to you where it's coming from, but this is pretty cool because this is our second international one. We've gone to South America, and now we're going north of the U.S. up to Vancouver, Canada. Help me welcome Heather Feeney to the show. Heather,
Hi.
welcome to a show about you.
That's very exciting. I don't know how much time I'll fill on a little show about me, but
Well, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
So, before we go into, who you are and when you worked with Kenny, et cetera, you're in Canada. So I'm guessing that it might be cold up there. Don't you have a jacket or a coat that you should be wearing now instead of just with,
Just my little top.
yeah.
Well, a good thing about Canada is we actually have electricity here. So I can turn on the heat in my house.
When did you guys get electricity?
I know, kind of right around the same time that we got like telephones and stuff.
And running water
And running water, yeah.
Oh, okay. But I thought you had a jacket that was kind of special that, you
Oh,
wore
I do.
during
Did you want to see that jacket?
that jacket, because it's almost the time of the year for the toy show.
Yeah, almost.
Show us that jacket. Show us
Okay.
that jacket just to.
This is my very, very nice. Dun, 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 dun.
Kenny Rogers.
Entertainment presents.
No,
Kenny
are,
Rogers.
so where are you? Point out yourself there, Heather.
Well, I'm very tiny because I'm just a tiny little mouse. There I am, right there. That little tiny mouse.
Cheeseball the mouse.
Yeah, that's me.
So didn't that kind of have emotion? Did you kind of have like emotional issues when you were cast as a cheeseball?
No way. I was so that character. I embraced it 150%. I am cheeseball.
Okay. Because we don't script the show and we just really kind of have a conversation instead of an interview, we should go back and tell people that you are Heather Feeney. You are from the Toy Shop. And why don't you tell us the years that you were active with the show and about New York City and then on tour? Because I believe that you kind of changed characters when you hit the road.
I did. So I did the Kenny Rogers Christmas from the Heart, including the Toy Shop in New York at the Beacon Theater in 1998. I believe
22 years already.
Well, I know. So the show opened in November, late November. I believe it was November 24th, and closed the end of January, I think, or 2/3 of the way through January. And then I moved back to Vancouver, actually, very shortly after that. In February, I moved back to Vancouver. And then I was called by Kelly Younkerman in, I feel like it was somewhere, maybe, I don't think it was that next Christmas. So not the Christmas of 2000. That's right. I actually was in New York that next year. I came back for the Millennium New Year. I thought if I was gonna explode like everybody else thought was gonna happen to the world, I may as well do it with a bang in New York, but nothing happened.
Brought a bunch of computers with you so that you were going out with a bang, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it was 2001 that Kelly Younkerman called me again and said, "Can you come on the road with us?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to," but I was doing another show in Vancouver, so I couldn't. But then he called again the next year, and he was very apologetic and said, "We'd love for you to come on the road. Are you busy this year?" I said, "I'm not busy. Let's do it." And then he said, "But you can't be Cheeseball anymore because your character has been taken over by Robin Higginbotham, who was my understudy in New York." And I was like, "Well, Robin's amazing. So who am I going to play? What am I going to do?" And he said, "Well, the part of Rags, which was played by Mamie Paris, had opened up because she was going on tour for, I think, Legally Blonde at the time. And
Okay.
so I played the part of Rags, which I pretty much knew. So I was excited to play that part as well.
You know what? And in the world of showbiz, understudies are probably undervalued because
Oh,
in many times, probably 80% of the time they don't go utilized. But when they do get
yeah.
utilized, it's very important that you have somebody that can do that. And it's my understanding that, interestingly, the two other people that we've had on the show, Steve Calzeret and Johnny Tomorrow,
Yeah.
or as we call each other, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, he's three people in one. Steve got sick just before the previews,
Yeah,
and
he did.
Johnny stepped in.
Yeah.
So you were all part of that, right? I mean, you remember
Yeah.
that whole thing?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So you're probably saying, as a character in that, oh man, I just hope this new guy doesn't blow it, because we've got the previews, and the previews are so important because that's the media that we get out of it, so that people, who want to buy tickets many times are depending upon the media reviews to buy their tickets. But everything
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah. Oh, well, I actually wasn't worried at all about Johnny stepping in for Steve, because we had already been rehearsing together for quite a bit of time before that. And he was amazing. I loved him. I knew he would be perfect as Bruno. And then as it turns out, then on tour, he was Bruno, and it was perfect.
It's perfect.
And Robin, I don't want to dismiss Robin at all. That woman is unbelievable, and she is still performing. I don't know where she's living, but we're in touch on Facebook or Instagram or one of those things. And
Okay.
she choreographed. She also was the understudy for the ballerina. So whenever, like, if there was ever a problem, she would step in for that. So she knew so many parts, and she was amazing.
So
And amazing.
was Tammy the ballerina when you were out on stage, out on tour?
Oh,
Tammy Pierce or Michelle Rogers or either of
it
those?
was Tammy, I believe.
Yeah,
I believe
it was
it was
Tammy. Yeah.
Tammy. When we were in New York, it was Martina Parisi was her name.
Okay.
She was a ballerina. But are you talking about the singer ballerina, or are you talking about the dancer ballerina?
That's a good question. I thought they were one and the same, but
Well,
yeah.
in New York, we had our ballerina up there, Giselle, up there in the
Giselle, right?
Right, and then we had our ballerina down here. So while she was singing up there, our ballerina was dancing. So that's the part that Robin Higginbotham did, was the dancing part, not the singing part. But the in New York, it was Tammy Pierce was our singer. But we had another one too. We had, hang on, let me look at my program.
Oh, you had hold that program up, because that probably brings back a lot of memories to people.
So Jacqueline Maloney
Okay.
was our toy, and also Tammy Pierce. So we had two.
Now, was Jillian Arciero with you?
Yes, she was. She was the angel.
Yeah, that's right.
I have all these great pictures too. So, okay, so this is my scrapbook. I can't take things out because they've literally been taped in here for 20 years.
Okay.
But there is the program.
Program, yep.
Yeah.
Theater. Yep.
And then there is there you go.
Yep. All that stuff. All the people.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah,
Pretty wild.
super amazing.
Yeah. And you know what? And as the time goes on, those programs become more and more valuable, because you look back and you see names of people that back then were just regular people. But then, now was Sean Hayes in any of your?
No, but I was pretty blown away that he had done the show before me, because I was a big fan of his from Will and Grace.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what? Here's what we've done. We've gone from Vancouver to the opening night of the show to the show from 20 years ago, but we never got to the point. Tell us about you, a Vancouver person. How did you hear about the show? Tell us about your audition process, because if it was anything like Johnny's and Steve's, it was a pretty darn rigorous.
Yeah, it was.
With many callbacks. How'd you hear about it?
Okay, so I was living in New York because I was going to school there. I have a degree in psychology that I got at the University of British Columbia, and I got that many moons ago. And I was always encouraged by my family to find a job to fall back on. So that's why I have a degree in university, which I've only ever used for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I moved to New York.
Don't tell the family that.
Well, I have to tell you that I say that, but I don't mean it. 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 I say that that I actually only ever really used it for 6 months because that was with a real job that I was paid. But I most certainly use my psych degree on a day-to-day basis.
Huh.
So,
Especially if you're in this business still.
yeah. Oh, it's great. It's very handy. So I was in New York because I graduated and I said, okay, bye everybody. I'm moving to New York. And I had auditioned to get into a school there called AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy.
My cousin's daughter just graduated from there.
Oh, very cool.
She went there, then she worked on a cruise ship, and then she got off the cruise ship. She had another show ready to go in New York, and COVID hit.
Oh, yeah. COVID.
American Musical Dance Academy or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then from there, I actually went to a film and TV school because I had to look at the reality of my situation being Canadian, that I was going to be bringing my training back home. And in Vancouver, it's, although there is theater here, it's not like Toronto, which is kind of like a Broadway North. Vancouver is a little bit more like a Hollywood North. So lots of film and TV. So I thought, okay, let's be realistic here. I need to get some film and TV training as well as my theater training because musical theater is actually my passion. And so I went to another school that was called the School for Film and Television.
I got to stop you.
Okay.
I got to stop you because you said a very important word and you even accentuate it differently because that is my passion.
Yes.
Not my passion, it's my passion. How important in a business that you're in is passion, excitement, and enthusiasm?
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10. I think that if you try to tackle a job that you're not passionate about, it's going to be work. And if you are doing something that you are passionate about, it's a joy. It's a joy. It fills your soul. You do a job so much better when you're passionate about something than trying to do a job that you go, whatever.
Walking through.
You're just walking through. And I more and more as I get older and think the timeline, oh my God, this was 20 some odd years ago that I did this show. Time is so valuable and life is really, really short. So I really try to fill my life with passion every day, doing things that really bring me joy. So, because honestly, like, who knows what happens tomorrow? So.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So you're back in the audition thing. You went back and forth to school, et cetera, et cetera. And I keep interrupting, but.
Yeah. So I went to this film and TV school called the School for Film and Television at Three of Us Studios, which now is called the New York Conservatory of Arts. Wasn't called that back then. And in either of those two schools, they said, okay, you have to get the trade paper, the Backstage. So every Thursday, Backstage would come out. And you'd flip to the audition section and you'd go through and it was like the classifieds. You'd circle all the things that you thought that you were right for. And then you would do your mailings. And so you had your headshots. Your headshots and resumes, 8x10, all ready to go. You got them cut at the corners or at Kinko's, here, cut
a Kinko.
Right? And so I saw this one ad and it didn't say what it was for, but it basically said at the Beacon Theater. And I was like, oh, that's just down the street from my house because I lived at 72nd and Columbus. So it was literally right down the street.
Yeah.
And it had the dates of the timeline of when it was going to be on. And I said, this is great. So I actually didn't know that it was for Kenny Rogers. I had no idea. I think it was called the Toy Shop. But I don't think it specifically said Kenny Rogers.
But it had good geography.
And what?
It had good geography because it was only 15 blocks from your house.
Right? Not even. It was 2 blocks from my house.
Oh, okay.
Location. It was right there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I said, I'm going to go do this one for sure. And it said, prepare a song. And I think that was it. And you may be called back for the dance call. So I remember going and I remember going into the audition, and it was in a very large room. I don't remember which studio it was, but there was a lineup of us going in, and it was men and women going into this audition room. And I remember I sang this song, and I'm a bit of a belter. I got a pretty good belt. And I came out of the audition, and I was like, I'm awesome. Like in my head, I was thinking, I nailed that. I'm so good. Like I feel so good about that audition. It was so great. I just went in there and I gave everything I had to them. And Kelly Younkerman was there, and might have been Warren Hartman, could have been Larry Pellegrini.
Yeah.
I only actually remember Kelly Younkerman.
You probably had a Green Bay Packers jacket on.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So as I'm walking out, like I'm way out, like not out of the door yet, but he is at the table and I'm like at the other side of this studio. And he leans over to whoever was beside him and he goes, "That's how you do an audition." And I closed the door behind me and I was like, yes.
Yes.
So yeah, like I just thought, oh, that was so good. I feel so good about that. And then I think I got called the next day and they said, come in for a dance call, or maybe it was that afternoon. So then I danced and that was fine. I'm, a dancer as well. And so that was fine. And then I got called again and then I had to do an improv and the improv, they asked me to be a Jack in the Box and I was like, okay. So I was like, it was really funny. And they asked if I had any gymnastics experience, which I did. So I think they may have been looking at me for the Jack in the Box, which was also one of the characters. And then I think I went in for another singing call. And all in all, there were 11 auditions. Like
11?
11. And that was like, we were all cast at one point. And then from the cast, which included all of the townspeople and all of the potential toys, from that, they narrowed down the group of us people into the toys, and they finalized the toys. So all of that came down to 11 when they finally said, you're going to be Cheeseball. And I was understudying the Jack in the Box.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Of all the shows that you've done prior to that and since then, have you ever had to go through the ringer 11 times to get picked?
No.
I mean, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So you've done the audition. When's the first time you met Kenny? Or as they say down south, the first time you met Kenny?
Kenny. First time I met Kenny? Okay, this is kind of funny. So when you go into an audition, you're a little bit like, you're nervous, right? So you don't necessarily look at the people's faces and know exactly who everybody is. That's why I said it may have been Warren sitting there, but I don't think that it was. I remember it was in a rehearsal and it was not a very large studio space. I think it was in Chelsea. I feel like that's where we rehearsed, was in Chelsea. And I remember Warren Hartman did walk in and he sat at the piano. And I grew up with Kenny's music. Like where I grew up in Alberta is a city called Calgary, and it's very country influenced as far as the music goes.
That where the Saddle Dome was?
Yeah. So I grew up on country music, and Kenny Rogers, I loved him. I listened to him all the time as a kid. The very first song I ever played on the guitar was The Gambler. So so he was a part of my history, but not the recent history. So Warren walks in and I'm looking at him thinking, is that Kenny? Is that Kenny? To myself, I wasn't sure.
Now, do you have lights on and everything, or is it just a regular room? You didn't have stage lights on.
No. It's just a regular room. Like it looked like a ballet studio, like bars on the walls or on the mirrors.
Oh yeah, with the mirrors.
Just a rehearsal room, and Warren went over and he sat at the piano. He started to play, and I was like, oh, I don't know Kenny to play the piano like that. Like that guy's amazing on the piano. And then I heard the words going around, Warren. I'm like, oh, that guy's name must be Warren. So I was like, that's not Kenny, because I hadn't seen him for so long that I didn't know. Then he walked in, and I went, oh my gosh, it's Kenny. Like, then he walked in, and then I knew. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Kenny right there. And he was quite quiet and shy. Introduced himself. And then it was just, and then he was like gone. So he didn't really rehearse with us, from my memory, too much while we were in those studio spaces.
Do you remember if he had on like a jogging suit and sneakers? That kind of
I don't think a jogging suit, but I think sneakers for sure.
Yep, in Adidas sweatshirt or something.
Yeah, very casual.
Yep.
But where I really remember him standing out was when we moved into the theater. And so we were all in the theater, and they were going to put the pieces of what we had learned together, so we knew what was going on. And Kenny sat down downstage on the theater, and we were all sort of upstage facing the audience, which was empty. And Kenny sat down on his stool and he told us his life. And I remember sitting on the floor looking out to this unbelievably beautiful theater with Kenny Rogers. Whew, I'm gonna get a little bit emotional and thinking, I'm living my dream.
You talk about being in the Glee Club when he was in high school?
I think so, yeah. And then he sang for us, and he sang, you know, like, I believe it was a cappella. Like, I think he just sang. And it was like, it was a moment I won't ever forget. Like, it was like, I was like in this bubble thinking, oh my gosh, is this real? Like, it was really special. Yeah.
So the show opens.
Yes.
But in the meantime, prior to the show, during rehearsals, what was the chemistry like with the well, two questions. The chemistry with the fellow new people from Toy Shop, and how did you blend with the band and the people that were on the road with Kenny 52 weeks of the year? How was that blending going?
Yeah. So
that a good question?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I honestly, at the time, hadn't realized that there were a few people there, like Steve Calzaretta being one of them, that actually had done this show before. So there was not a noticeable difference between, oh, we've all done the show before and you guys are the new people and we got to kind of make it work. It was not that at all. I actually had no idea that there were other people who had done this show before and that they were just bringing the show to New York for that year. So everybody just blended like this. And the band was unreal, like so welcoming and there and present, and there was never a divide. We were always there together, you know, like we were always it never felt like the band, the cast, the toys, Kenny
separate. Yep.
It never felt like that. So
in New York, the band was in the pit, right?
Yes, I may be getting it confused. I think when we were on tour they were behind us,
so they weren't even that was that 1 year or so. They didn't even have to wear clothes, or at least show clothes, I should say.
Yeah, that's right. They were in the pit because I remember being able to look down and seeing Gene, and not everybody. I just remember being able to look down and seeing the band, but Gene specifically because he's very animated when he's playing, you know.
Sisk or Gene Golden?
Gene Sisk.
Gene Sisk. Okay, he'll be happy to hear that because you know what? In the interview that I've done with him, and I told him face to face, I said, Sisk, you live every note of every song.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And
talk about passion. There's a man who loves what he does.
Loves what he does. And we always joke about the last couple lines of Islands in the Stream where he pushes the microphone away. And I said, why don't you do it then? He goes, whatever, because it's the last song and we're ready to leave. But anyway, that's always it's interesting to see that you just said that you can tell who else shares that passion with you, because there's people with passion are on a different wavelength. Would you agree with me on that, Heather? They're not just there. They're into it. They are their character. They're not playing a character. They are the character.
Yeah, that's good that you said that, because I honestly, I think that experience in New York was one of the most fulfilling of my life because everyone was passionate. Everyone lived and breathed their characters on stage. They were so grateful to be there and so excited to be there. All of the band. I mean, Gene stands out a little bit because he moves a lot when he's like, you know, playing. Right. But then so did Warren, you know, he'd hunch a little bit more over the piano and be a little bit more like, is it Schroeder from Peanuts?
Yeah, the way it's interesting that you notice these idiosyncrasies, because I thought I was the only one who did, but
no, and Lynn Hammond, when he would play the drums, his head would move, and it's like, for sure. And Chuck and Randy, you know, like they all they loved what they did, and you could see it. You could see it. And then
Better add Steve Glassmeyer in there, because if you don't,
and Steve Glassmeyer. No. I have to throw him in there too.
Say, she didn't like me.
No, I love Steve. No. I love
the
them
whole
all.
band. I think that's the whole band. I think we got everybody there. I don't know if Brian was there yet, or
no, not yet. But I did meet him later.
Okay. Yeah. So now,
and
Mike's the new drummer, right? Yeah. The new drummer, yeah.
The new drummer for like 7 years or whatever it is.
We'll call him. But probably the reason is it's the dream of everybody who's been in showbiz to play in New York City.
Yeah.
The theater was actually on Broadway, although not down in the quote unquote Broadway section. But what is there not to love and what not to be passionate about? You've got probably the most demanding audiences in the world in a good sized theater that, you're playing for 5 or 6 weeks. It's not like, you're doing one-nighters, while you're in New York. I mean, when you're on the road, you're doing the one-nighters, but, it had to be pretty cool for you.
Cool.
So that chemistry was there.
Yes. I might also add that I didn't just play cheeseball. So I played a very special character. I actually opened the show. So Doug Dean and I can't remember who else it was. At the beginning of every show, they brought a giant snowball out and put a snowball in the middle of the stage, which was like the bottom of a snowman. And that was me. And I had to sit inside that snowman for
a long time.
15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yep.
And then the kids did Frosty the Snowman when they came out on the stage. So I could see, I had little slits in there and I could see out in the audience. And that was a really special time for me to see everybody.
Could you breathe?
Yeah, I could breathe. My snowball was quite big. Like I could sit in there. But
I remember that. They rolled it out.
Well, they didn't roll it. They had to kind of pick it up and then drop it down in the middle of the stage.
But they put it out there before the show opened, right?
Yes. So as the theater opened and everybody was coming in, it was part of the show. They wanted the audience to see it. So they wanted to see 2 people bring a snowman out and snowball out and stick it on the stage. Okay. So it was after they opened the doors to the theater and the patrons could come in. So I got to sit there and watch the theater fill up, and that's really cool. You don't usually make eye contact so much when you're doing a performance with particular audience members, because you don't want to break that fourth wall. And so I could see everybody. I was looking at people.
Describe that fourth wall.
Well, for the first act, which was, Kenny Rogers and his hits, sort of, it was, he would very much interact with the audience, but then there was a sort of a background where there was a story sort of being told there, like Winter Wonderland. There were, we would get on in partners and we would dance and snow would be falling and it would just be a beautiful thing. And as soon as you turn and you make eye contact with somebody, it's almost like the spotlight turns on them. I mean, not really. Like they're looking up at you on the stage and they're thinking, wow, this is so great to watch, sort of like a television. And then if somebody looks you right in the eyes, all of a sudden you're snapped out of that magical moment and you're a part of it almost, which in some ways on stage is a great thing, but not in a theatrical way. So you want to keep that facade, I guess, of there being an imaginary wall between you and the audience. So Kenny would be able to interact with the audience. It's a different, he was a different part of the show. Yeah. However, when he did the Toy Shop, which was the second act, he didn't. He played Hank Longley and there was the fourth wall there and he was just interacting with the people on the stage.
Okay. So I think it's important to point out here that doing the show in New York for 4 or 5, 6 weeks, whatever, and doing the show on the road, 2 totally separate animals, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
very cool.
In New York, I mean, you already had your own house.
Yeah, well.
Right, I mean, you lived down the street, but when you were on the road, you lived in a bus.
I did, yeah. How'd
you like the travel?
Well, I had toured once before with a different production. So I had done the tour experience before, but then when I did it with the Kenny Rogers show, it was a whole new ballgame because we had our own bus, and it's not just like a bus. This was like an apartment on wheels. Like it was unreal. Like it was so decked out, and I remember thinking, I remember just walking on that bus the first time and meeting our bus driver. I can't remember what his name was. I think it was Mike. And thinking, are you kidding me? And he's like, anything you want, just give me your grocery list. I stop in the next town. We fill up the fridges and we do everything. And I was like, I am a rock star. Like I actually felt like a rock star, country star. Like yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is so cool. I think everybody who is a performing artist should experience that once in their life. It was wild to me. Wild. Living that life. I don't know how long I could do it for. I certainly didn't grow tired of it in the time that we did tour. I didn't. I loved every minute of it. But I don't know if 3, 4, 5 years down the road, I might be like, oh my God, get me off this bus. I might.
Well, how about Chuck, Steve, and Randy that did it for 40 years?
I know. I mean,
all year long.
Yeah, I know.
During the holiday season.
Yeah, and seeing the same places over and over again too. So what I tried to do, I live in the moment for sure. And what I tried to do was I went to these towns and I thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to get back here ever in my life. So I really took advantage of the sleeping. So there were some people they chose after a show. Let me just back up a little bit for the people who are watching. So, you do a show in a town. And then what happens is after the show is over, you literally leave the theater and you get on your bus and you go to the next town. Your driver drives you to the next town. All the while the crew, the crew is taking down the set and they're doing everything else and they packing it onto the trucks. Then they get on their bus and they go. Kenny had his own bus. He'd get on his bus and away they'd go. The rest of the cast had their own bus and away they would go. The kids had their own bus, away they would go, like their buses everywhere. And then you would drive through the night and say the next town that you were going to was only 2 hours away. You could choose to stay up. It would only really be about 10 o'clock at night when you get off that stage, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. You'd get into your bus. You'd maybe stay up till 11. You'd get to your next town. Some people might go out in that town. I would maybe go out, but if it was before midnight, I'd probably go out for a drink or something with the rest of the cast and stuff. But if it was 2 o'clock in the morning when we went to the next town, I was definitely sleeping on the bus. We all had our bunks, which were also very cool with our little TVs in them and our curtains that closed. And so I would sleep in my bunk until we got to the town. Then I'd wake up, I'd go into our hotel, which they also provided. And then once in the hotel, I would go to sleep again. I'd set my alarm for 8 o'clock in the morning and I would get up and I would go tour the town wherever I was. So I got to know a lot of the US that I may not ever get to ever again. And I toured, all these different towns and cities, which was fantastic. And then I would show up for dinner at 6 o'clock at the theater and do the whole thing again.
Any of those towns or cities still impress you that you still remember them today? Names of the towns?
Well, now I'd have to go through again. So this is another photo album I have. So I have the tour where we went. And there were so many places that I loved. What year
is that one?
So this is 2002.
Okay. Is Worcester,
Worcester was always there. Worcester was on December 21st, 2002.
Oh, right at the end. Oh, and then they must have gone to
Westbury.
Westbury.
Yep. Westbury was always the last one.
Shop. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
And a pizza shop that Chuck would take everybody to in Westbury.
I think so. Yep. I've got pictures.
Yeah. Problem with eating pizza at 11:30 at night, after you get to be a certain age, it's difficult to eat pizza at that time of night, but nevertheless. Okay, so we should say, let's see some of the some of the paraphernalia that you've got.
Okay,
That
so when I was in New York, they had these, oh, I think maybe probably on tour too, but I don't remember. I got this guy in New York. This is Bruno the bear. You know, Steve and Johnny would be very happy. They probably also have Bruno the bear.
Yeah.
And I got this because I'm super sentimental, and I thought, you know, I better get that bear because I'm one day going to have kids, and maybe I want to give this bear to my kids.
Now, I can't ask you how old you are, but I can do this. I can say, how old were you when you were doing this show stuff?
I was, you know, 28 for the New York show.
So it puts you at 1980.
Put me at 19,
no, 1970.
Do you really want to know?
Yeah, it's easier.
I'll just tell you. So I actually today's my last Sunday in my 40s.
Okay.
Next Sunday
1970, okay.
Yeah, next Sunday is my 50th birthday.
Okay. Well, you know what? We'll tell. This will be out public by then, so I'm sure people will be wishing you a happy birthday. Okay, so you're 28, 30. Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is very cool. So, okay, I wanted to tell you about the snowman. So I was the snowman.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was also the camel. So at one point they had like a little nativity scene that crossed the stage. Well,
Time out.
Kenny.
Were you the whole camel or one end of the camel?
I was the front of the camel.
Okay, thank you very much.
I was the front of the camel. Yeah. And this was during previews. I think it was the first night of previews. And we needed to see how the audience responded to the camel. And so our little kids, you know, Mary and Joseph and the three wise men and our other little animals that were kids dressed up with like, you know, a little sheep's head that were super cute. They go out, and then I'm not sure who decided that there should be a camel, but we had a camel. So I was the front, and this other guy, Drew DiStefano, he was the back. And we had our walk all down, and we walked out onto the stage, and the whole audience just burst out laughing. And we thought, uh-oh, like that's not the response you want to get when you're talking about the story of Christ. And, you know, like, so we had notes at the end, and Kelly Younkerman is going through all the notes, and he gets to the camel part, and he goes, cut the camel, the camel. So we lost the camel part. But anyway, so it's Cheeseball and the snowman. And I have this beautiful watercolor of my snowman. This was sort of
I remember those rickety arms, those stick arms. Yeah.
So this was sort of a concept of what they wanted for the snowman in the show. And I received this from Kenny at the end of the show. It says, Kenny Rogers, Christmas from the Heart, Frosty, character number 12, 1998. Frank Krenz was the painter. And then on the end, it says, Heather, you look so much nicer in person. Thanks, Kenny Rogers.
Kenny, okay, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's some paraphernalia. And you already saw my jacket. And then, oh my gosh, like I have a million photos. Like I have, okay, just a minute now. I have a funny photo that Steve Calzaretta will get a kick out of. Oh my gosh, this is a very big album. See, back in the olden days, we didn't have digital, right? So everything is in a photo album.
Now, was Dawn there too? Was Dawn?
Gosh, Dawn, one of my favorite people in the world.
Okay. Dawn was kind of keeping track of y'all.
Yeah, I love Dawn. Yes, she was. And you know, I kind of looked to her a little bit like a mother role.
Right.
Exactly. So she was too young to be my mom, but then she had this wonderful little daughter named Taylor.
I was just gonna say that you worked with Taylor. That's Taylor. Taylor's the little one.
Yeah.
And you're the big one.
That's right. This is our opening night. And she was like my little, like if we had like a little buddy that we were supposed to look after, she was my little buddy. And
Taylor's working at the Ellen show now.
I know she is. And gorgeous. Gorgeous. So this is another photo from opening night.
Oh, that's so funny because I was just going to mention Taylor.
Yeah. So
Kenny.
That's from opening night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of special. What else can I see? Oh, there's some of the cast
Ladies and gentlemen,
members.
stay with us because we've got 172 photos to show you.
Only 4 hours later.
For those of you that have just joined us, we are talking with the one and only Heather Feeney, who played a number of roles, including the front end of a camel. And is that in, by the way, is that in your resume, that you played a front end of a camel?
I don't have that on my resume.
Okay. But think of that poor guy who had to play the back end of the camel. How do you,
No, Drew. And we just recently got back in touch again because I had lost touch with him. And then thank goodness for Facebook because there he was. I was like, oh my God,
oh,
it's the ass end of the camel.
That's too funny.
Am I allowed to say that? Okay, here's some of us toys.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, but I have to show you. I heard Steve Calzaretta's interview, and he was talking about how hot that costume was.
Oh, the bear costume.
Oh my gosh, like sweating buckets. And so was the mouse, let me tell you. So whenever we had the chance to come off the stage for a long period of time, because we were busy. We were on the stage all the time. And so like I've got my hands in my like neck like this because I'm trying to let air go down into it. But this is Mamie Paris and Topher Goodman and Steve Calzaretta and me backstage. And you can see how hot and sweaty
Steve looks near death.
Yeah, like look at how sweaty we are. Look at our faces, they're just liquid.
Drop it down a little bit. Okay, there we go.
Okay, and there's Topher and Mamie at
Topher's in the back.
Yeah, he was the rag doll, and he's totally sweating too. He had some kind of funny little plastic head like Mamie. There's
now, what was I thinking? Yeah, I don't know. All I know is those characters. I did some work as one of a snork when I was doing some work with Ice Capades. I don't know if you remember Ice Capades. Actually, most of the skaters were Canadian kids, but I had to wear one of those costumes where they shipped it around from city to city to promote the show, but they never cleaned it between shows. So you get it and man, it would stink.
Well, I think we probably went through about a case of Febreze every night with those.
Yeah, exactly. So
there's the snowman.
There you go. There you go. That's right. And you had to sit down. I mean, you had to like be on your knees.
I had to squat, and I wore what I referred to as my frosty pants because they were like an elastic waistband pair of pants. You could just slip on, slip off, but they had all this white, sparkly material all over them, so they looked like snowman. Snowman, and I called them my frosty pants. And after Frosty left the stage, I had, I think, 45 seconds to get back on stage in where I came on stage with with Stephen Kennedy. I don't know if you know him. He played the soldier, the toy soldier. Yeah. So Steve was my partner when we went back on to do the next scene. And I literally had 45 seconds to whip off those frosty pants and put on my townsperson clothes. This is my townsperson clothes, and I had to come out. But that's Johnny Tomorrow beside me, and and Julie Foldesai, and Martina Paris in the long kind of plaid coat there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to be a quick change artist, right?
Oh, so fast. I had people help me change, which is for fun. I don't know what else you want to see here. We had this giant toy box, which was pretty darn cool. So that's me, Cheeseball. Yep. And there's our toy soldier right there, Stephen Kennedy and Topher Goodman as Rags. No, Riches, I think was his name. But this is our toy box here. Yeah. And we all entered and exited the stage in that thing. So there was a tunnel that went underneath the stairs, and we crawled through the tunnel from backstage, and then pushed open the lid, and then came out as toys.
Came out. Really so, what was it that you took from that time with Kenny and the crew that you've taken with you to this day forward to help you in your career?
Well, I think honestly, like I think from So from traveling around with the band, like I always felt like, okay, I made it to New York. I'm doing this show on Broadway, which was an off-Broadway show, but on Broadway in this amazing theater. And I remember thinking, I made it. This is amazing. I've made it. And I feel like that show kind of humbled me a little bit, put me back, like took me off my pedestal and said, well, I wasn't really on a pedestal. I'm a pretty humble person, but made me realize that we're all pretty equal. Like Kenny never had this air of pretentious about him ever. He was so down to earth and so just us. He was just a guy, you know, who was a beautiful singer and songwriter, who shared his art with the world. And thank God, because wow, like unbelievable. So I think it brought me down to a place where I realized that, yeah, there's New York and yeah, there's talent here. But when I came back to Vancouver, I realized that the people that I did productions with after that show were equally as talented as the people I did performances with in New York. Because I looked at it from a different way. I didn't look at it as, oh, I'm the lead in this show, or I'm, you know, the supporting actress in this show. It was like, no, we are all a cast, and we have to make this show be perfect. Like make it tell a story, be authentic to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that became the most important, I think, lesson is telling the story, whatever story that was. Like in our situation, it was the toy shop, telling the story of the toy shop and what a wonderful story it was. So any story after that, it was like, there was no, I think I just realized that no matter your fame, no matter how big of a star you are, we're all just humans walking this earth together, sharing what we're passionate about with anybody who wants to watch or listen.
Mm-hmm. And you got that from the way Kenny interacted with you guys.
I do believe that. Yeah, I believe that they were so, everything was so equal. Like I just felt so part of everything, rather than, ooh, the film industry is a little bit different. Like the film industry is a different ball game, where, you know, you work on a production and you have like your star, and you don't really kind of like hang out and chat too much with the star. And yeah, it's just a bit different. From a theatrical standpoint, it really made me realize that we're all just humans walking this earth. Everybody's equal.
Mm-hmm. So what words of advice, words of wisdom, Heather, would you have for young people that, you know, maybe are in their 20s, maybe they're in college, maybe they're in high school, and they say, man, I want to be in showbiz. What could you tell them now that, you know, you haven't, based on your experience, that you learned from this?
I don't know that it would be a lesson that I've learned from my Kenny Rogers experience, but more like everything all together. And that would be, so I'm just gonna move this.
Yeah.
That would be to do the best work that you can do. Do the best work that you can do, and then let it go. So in terms of auditioning, like go in there, do the best work that you can do, and then let it go, because there are so many different reasons why you're not going to get cast in something, and it's out of your control. As long as you go in and you do the best work that you know how to do, every time you go in for an audition, then just walk away. That's all you can do. Yeah. And you know, because there is a lot of, no, I'm sorry I didn't get it. 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 There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, and don't get discouraged by it. Don't get discouraged.
The next one, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So we want to thank you so much for spending time with us on this series. And I know that everybody who has participated has brought something to our viewers, because you see the comments down below from the viewers saying, you know what, she brought out a story that I didn't know before that humanizes Kenny. And really the story is all about Kenny, because obviously that's, the reason that everybody had this gig. But Kenny was the one who never made it about Kenny, but made it about you and about the audience. I don't know if you'd agree with me on that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That was the thing, is that I think there was no Kenny, because he like I had mentioned earlier, turned the spotlight on us. He said, this is, I don't know, he never, yeah, he always made us all feel equal and special. He had a really amazing way of making everybody feel special.
Great. And you've made us feel special during this time. And we want to thank you and let you know that, or let our audience know that if you enjoyed this one, just down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, just hit that subscribe button and you'll get all our new ones that we've got coming up, and you'll have access to all the ones that are in the series so far. But because we had this time to spend with Heather Feeney, and Heather, by the way, you lived up to your billing from our guys in the band that said you were a very special person.
I miss them all so much. After that tour ended in 2002, I made sure to stay in touch with Gene Roy, and met up with Kenny and the band anytime they would come west, which I did.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. We've got, Gene Roy is on our list here. Gene Roy said, after you've talked to everybody else, you call me, and then I'll do it, because you know what, there's nobody. Gene Roy he's the master magician. He spent more time with Kenny than any live person, including, family members, during that time period. And we all
and, and never wanted to take credit for anything.
Exactly.
And still he's like, oh yeah, interview everybody else first and then call me. It's like,
and then call me. Yeah.
He maybe should have been at the top of the list.
He wants to set the record straight about what everybody said about him.
Oh, I have nothing but amazing things to say about Gene. I absolutely adore that man.
Great. Thank you so much. And everybody, let's go out in a blaze of glory.
Woohoo! Thank you.